Today with a fantastic team from Alabama, and we're going to be talking again about building your R3 team. So this is part of a large series of webinars that we're doing to communicate what the meaningful work can be like when we break down the silos between different teams and work together for this large outcome we call R3. So I'd like to welcome the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the team that works collectively together on R3 initiatives. And if you could, folks, just let me welcome you as part of this webinar series of building your R3 team. And with that, Justin, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the horn.
Thanks, Taniya. Justin Grider with Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and I'm the R3 coordinator.
Fantastic. And Bill?
I'm Sergeant Bill Freeman with the Alabama Department of Conservation, and I am a sergeant, and I do a lot of diversity outreach work with the public, as well as a lot of training of officers in our department.
Fantastic. Welcome, Bill. Brandon?
I am Officer Brandon Holloway. I'm the R3 regional coordinator for the state. So I assist with all the R3 programs.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And Marianne?
Marianne Hudson, I'm the Conservation Outreach Coordinator, do a variety of R3 things such as manage our social media, interact with the public when they call with questions or concerns, and manage some outreach events such as expos.
Fantastic. And Lance?
And I am Lance Cherry. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports.
I'm Taniya Bethke, and I am the Director of Operations for the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you all today. All along, we've had a chance to meet with different teams that are showcasing various ways to partner with each other to do R3. And I got the chance to meet with you all at the R3 Symposium, and Justin, I've known you for some time, and I started hearing some of these really fantastic things happening on the ground in Alabama. But one thing that everybody at home needs to understand is that Justin Grider is the R3 Minutes belt winner from the R3 Symposium. And so just to take a gander at how wonderful he looks as the—
Stand up and show us the belt, Justin.
I don't have the belt on me.
Oh.
It's in my office.
Okay.
But honestly, you know, Alabama is doing some fantastic things. And so we have a chance today to talk about, as part of this larger webinar series, some of the things that law enforcement has done and communications have done to support the broader culture and identity in your organization surrounding R3. And so again, this fits into this larger series where we're breaking down silos and looking at the skills and abilities that we can incorporate into R3 teams if we think bigger. So with that, you know, if you don't mind digging a little bit into the history of your team and kind of how this informal R3 gathering of professionals came to be in Alabama, I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of when this all started and how it came to be.
So I would say it's a nod to our director, and some foresight on his part has been nationally involved. I think he hit, or maybe hits 10 years this year, but he's been nationally involved since very early in his tenure and was an early adopter of R3. And as a result, started putting people in places to accomplish some R3 goals within our state. So I think that led to this really informal team of people that we have here. So major credit to him and his foresight of being willing to adopt that early on in the process. And then also credit to him for putting this team together, which I think works really well.
Justin, could you tell me a little bit about how your position is poised within your agency?
Yeah, so when I first started in 2016, I worked on a regional level in 16 or 17 counties. And then after a few years, Chuck wanted to, again, prioritize, Chuck being our director, wanted to prioritize R3 agency-wide, and so created an R3 coordinator position that reported directly to him. So I'm very fortunate in that position. It allows me the opportunity to chat with all positions within all sections, and just open up a line of communication, which helps us break down silos, which you already mentioned in this call, and we'll probably elaborate on a little bit later. So it's a great opportunity to do things efficiently and effectively. And again, that's kudos to his foresight for creating that position.
Very cool. I think that's something that's unique. Not every state has an R3 coordinator within the office of the secretary or the director. So having that autonomy and that authority to work across divisions and across silos is pretty fantastic. And then you've got folks like Bill and Marianne and Brandon on your team, which is fantastic. So Bill, tell me a little bit about what it's been like bringing Justin in and working collaboratively with the R3 team, knowing that your background's within law enforcement.
It's been a great experience. When this started with the director, it was before Justin came on board, and we started doing some R3 type activities with outreach in reaching different audiences, more diverse audiences. When Justin came, Justin has brought everything together. We were doing a lot of activities and events, and Justin has brought everything together, and the law enforcement personnel in the last, I'd say 2 years, have gotten really excited because they see a direction that we're going in, and everybody wants to get involved. When we're doing things, the younger officers really want to be involved, and that's just a result of Justin's leadership and the shift we're kind of having in our agency culture. A lot of retirements, a lot of new people. So it's been a positive experience.
Awesome. And we'll get a little bit more into agency culture later, but thank you for that kind of introduction. And Brandon, you're keeping it together. I see somebody cleaning the windows behind you. People were moving furniture earlier. Brandon's already relocated twice for this call, but nice job keeping a straight face. Tell me a little bit about, from your perspective, what it's been like having this kind of informal team start to form.
I think it's great. We discussed this before. We work very well together. So having our director, he's really good to work with also. He shoots down ideas. We shoot ideas up to him. We shoot ideas between each other, and we work really good with one another. We also include the other divisions within our actual agency. So working with this group of people is probably one of the best things that I've ever done. It's just because we have really good personalities. We have really open personalities. We can work well with each other. And I think that's why we're so successful so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can tell just from the last couple calls we've had with each other just how open and friendly you all are. And smart Alex, I mean, to boot. So you got that going for you, which is nice.
You gotta have fun with it.
Absolutely true. And of course, Director Sykes is on my board as well and heavily involved in the R3 community at large. And so having that support is fantastic. Marianne, tell me about it from a communication standpoint. What's it been like forming this kind of informal team?
Well, an agency like ours has a lot of employees and serves millions of Alabama residents. And so there's such a wide variety of interests and such a wide variety of needs, both from the staff and from the public. And it's very important that we have formed this core set of basic principles so that we're able to better understand what the public wants from us and better understand what we want from them. And so when it comes to all the huge, vast amounts of subsets of information that our agency is responsible for relaying back and forth between ourselves and the public, having an interpretive group who can kind of try to keep it centered and focused for the basics. Really helps streamline information and cut down on some of the willy-nilly types of communication that could fall on deaf ears, both within house and outside of the house. And so having this type of group is really helpful because it helps us stay mindful of what our goals are and what our mission is.
And that really resonates with me, Marianne, and I appreciate you saying that, just that unified front mentality, that when you have folks that are working together across teams, you get a sample from all the different divisions and all the different teams to pull together your messaging and streamline and be a unified front. And man, that's powerful. And I see that every time I talk to somebody from Alabama, that not only do you have director support, but within your team, there's this culture and identity that everybody's on the same page with. And I know it's always a work in progress and the needs of your public is always shifting, but that simple idea of we can pull together and we can be more effective if we do so is something special to you. So kudos for starters. I think that's fantastic. One of the next things I'd like to talk a little bit about, and you mentioned it several times, various folks have, is culture, a culture of R3. And so I know Alabama does something really special with the I Am R3 online training, but I was wondering if you all could talk a little bit about your internal R3 culture and maybe that training.
So I'll start with saying too, I want to follow up with everybody's introductions and involvement sort of as this informal R3 team. Bill and Brandon and Marianne all are quote unquote a part of that team because of initiative and because of their willingness to go above and beyond their basic job duties. And so they're doing a lot of this stuff outside of what is required of them. So I think that's a huge testament to them. And I don't just say that because they're on the call and they're saying nice things about me, but I genuinely mean that. It's my job to do R3. It's literally in my R&Rs, but it's not necessarily in theirs. And so a big testament to them for having the initiative and being willing to be involved with this stuff, because ultimately it just adds to their list of responsibilities. So I'm proud to be a part of that team and to work with so many great people. As far as like the internal staff training, that came about, that I Am R3 campaign came about because Director Sykes, when he created that R3 coordinator position, his top priority was to educate the entire staff on R3. What is it? How does it apply to us? Why is it relevant? And how should we start to implement some of these strategies? And so this was also in the dawn of COVID. And so we were toying with the idea of doing in person or doing a virtual or maybe hybrid. And so long story short, we developed an online training module that we added in addition to like normal employee training that was already being conducted online. And it sort of kick-started this R3 initiative within our agency and put it at the top of the priority list, not just for senior leadership, but for everybody that was involved. And then so it promoted this idea that, hey, if you have ideas, if you have initiative, if there are things that you would like to accomplish and they align with these R3 initiatives, we want you to open up that line of communication. And so I think that's where some of these positions, like we're talking with Bill and Brandon and Marianne, have sort of evolved over the last few years, and really sort of at hyperspeed in the last 2 years since that campaign.
And it's amazing what can happen when you identify your kind of who your champions are, right? The folks that are really passionate and can help continue to gain buy-in across the whole department instead of one person kind of trying to do it all on their own, right? I think that's one of the things that our R3 teams often get tripped up by is when you hire an R3 coordinator, it makes R3 feel like it's one person's job. And it's not, it's part of the identity of an organization. It's part of our business practices, it's baked into the culture. And so I see that in Alabama, that you've really done the work to bake it into the culture. And I think that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing about that. So, Bill, you talked a little bit about how this internal culture of R3 has really helped to kind of streamline your outreach efforts. But tell me about that, from kind of knowing what it was like before this identity, this R3 was built in versus what it's like now. What are some of the changes that you've seen?
There's a lot of positive changes that have happened. And not to go back too far, When we first started this, I'm law enforcement, Brandon's law enforcement. Maybe the mindset of law enforcement was different. Protecting a resource, out in the woods, on the water, doing our jobs. When R3 really started getting going, we realized that R3 is driving this whole train. It has affected our hiring process even. I mentioned earlier about retirements. So we've got a lot of all game wardens retiring that have been game wardens for 20, 30 years. Our users are changing rapidly. So it gives us the opportunity to, when we do our hiring, we're looking for different trades. We're not just looking for outdoorsman type people. We're looking for communications people. We're looking for IT, a whole different skill set that can do the law enforcement and assist with this R3, because this is the future, and our personalities that we're hiring will enhance our effectiveness in our mission going forward to deal with R3. And another good thing that has happened with this R3 and our users changing, it's enabled us to diversify more within law enforcement. So we're changing with the times, because R3 is just as much a part of enforcement as being in the woods and on the water, enforcing the laws. So it's really affected law enforcement in real diverse ways. We've also made it a part of our R&Rs, or our requirements and responsibilities of our job. We've also got that put in. So every officer, we are R3, and it's written there that they are to participate, and they want to. So just more incentives. So it's just kind of opened up a bigger, broader field, and it helps with everything from diversity to recruiting this younger generation, bringing them on board and mentoring them and helping them. So it's been positive. When at first it was kind of daunting.
Yeah. Well, holy smokes, impacting hiring practices, being part of your work responsibilities, all of that being built into, and your training opportunities. I mean, it's all across the board involved in who everybody is in the agency. That's impactful. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. What about Marianne, thinking about it from your perspective? Some of the changes that you've seen, again, you mentioned this kind of like streamlined outreach and unified front messaging standpoint. What's that been like for you in the communications role?
Well, I can give some specific examples that other folks may be able to use. So for example, when our division does outreach events and we are asked to man a booth or staff a table at a hunting and fishing expo, for example. So in the past, before we've kind of had this vibe shift of focusing on R3, in the past, staff would be assigned for a certain number of hours to sit at the booth. And that still remains the same. However, the difference is, with me kind of coordinating it with R3 in mind, I get the staff schedules. We include both game wardens and biologists at the tables. I send a group email where I introduce them to each other. They may be from different areas and different counties. Here's who you're going to be sitting with. Here's your shift. And I will actually remind them what they're there for, in a friendly way. Of course, they don't need to be told what to do. Everybody has best of intentions, but just basically reminding them, today you are a customer service representative. These expos are sometimes the public's best opportunity to speak to a game warden face-to-face in a relaxed environment. Remember to be approachable, remember to be friendly, and literally give them that type of directions, things that they may not have heard since they first interviewed for a job. Just friendly reminders of why you are assigned to this position today. You're going to be representing us today, and here's all the things that we represent, and here is why we trust you to represent us today. things like that. Another thing that's been very useful is I'm better able to get messages out to the public by having direct conversations with law enforcement officers. So for example, since they are the boots on the ground, so to speak, literally and figuratively, they may have a finger on the pulse of something that I'm not aware of. And so, for example, they may tell me, hey, can you put on our Facebook page some information about this, because I'm getting a lot of questions about it. And we've kind of broken down those barriers. They can come directly to me. They text me that information. I'm getting a lot of questions about A, B, C, or D. Can you put out some information about it? Or maybe there should be some more publicity about it or advertisement about it, or it can be something as simple as a road closure in a wildlife management area or a controlled burn. Send me that information so I can get it out to the public and basically kind of foster the exchange of information between the public and our staff by using all those eyes and ears that are on the ground, that are other staff members who can come to me directly and give me what I need to know so that I can tell people things, and all those little things really add up. So when it comes to things like a road closure on public land or there's a lot of bears in your neighborhood this week, something like that, those types of things that the officers are aware of before me are important things that I need to know, that I can tell folks, that help foster trust. The public trusts us. It helps foster a kind of a interpersonal type of conversation when we're sharing little tidbits of information with them as well in a friendly manner, instead of just here's the rules and regulations. We can share, hey, here's a heads up. We hope to see you at this event, and just kind of, again, we've got a vibe that we try to exude to everyone, and it ripples through the staff, and the public picks up on that as well.
You just hit on something that I keep being like a recurring theme, and at the R3 practitioner training, both Bill and Brandon sat in on that. And both of them brought up this theme of building public trust, right? Building trust with the communities that we serve, especially as our communities evolve. And Brandon, I distinctly recall you saying, we've got to act differently to build trust with various populations, especially as they evolve over time. And so talk to me a little bit about that, Brandon. And Marianne, thank you for speaking to that, because you're right. I think that responsive communication and transparency is really going to help build those relationships. But Brandon, tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay. So I'm a firm believer in the communication that we have with the community, but also our communication within our agency. I think R3 has helped with that greatly, because we actually have a better relationship with the community as far as law enforcement, because we have activities to offer them. Whereas when they had questions before, they might call in, you get an answer, but a lot of people are hands-on learners. They want to see someone else do it and then teach them how to do it. Now, this is an opportunity for us to do so. Marianne's help with posting stuff on our Facebook. She posts pictures. She asks questions. People interact with her all the time. So I think the communication, the wall is starting to break. So we're building that bridge. Like I know you like that term that I use. So we're building a bridge with the community, but we're also building a bridge with us, because there are other officers, like Bill said, they're super excited about helping with the activities that we do. It gives them a little more purpose other than just going out and beating the ground and looking for somebody doing something wrong. They want to help the community just as much as we do on this team, because we understand the importance of building our culture as far as the hunting and fishing world. And that, like I said, that's my big thing. I'm constantly talking to Justin about that. Like what well, maybe I can ask about this, or maybe we can get this group going. So, and we're working on other things now. We're the college community with Bill is one of the biggest outreaches that we're trying to do right now. And I think that's going to be a big one for us if we can ever shut the door on it.
Talk about it. What you trying to do?
Bill, Bill's better versed in this whole, hey, the college community thing, but I know on my end, I'll tell you what I've discussed with Justin, is talking to, we have some big colleges here. So trying to reach that group and figure out the things that we can do to help them come into the R3 world as far as our adult mentored hunting, and some of the programs that we can get them involved with, because it's a younger community and it's something that they can take with them for years to come, which will in turn help us in years to come.
Bill, what would you add to that?
I'll add that the work started back in about 2015, 2016, after our director brought us in and said, hey, you guys, we're going to do this R3 stuff, get out there and meet people. So I went to HBCU colleges in Alabama, and I was very well received. A lot of people don't know who we are. And so I started working with Tuskegee that year, and they went from, and it was basic, a hunter education class. And I took the students hunting, the ones that wanted to go. They'd never done it, never been in the woods. And taught them how to kayak and canoe, and taught them how to fish, spent a lot of time with them. This thing has evolved. It's been going every year since then. And it's evolved from me just interacting with those students and that staff to where they've added curriculum. Now they can get a wildlife-based degree in a 3+1 they established with Auburn. They're enrolled, they're using academics afield. They applied for a grant, which they would have known nothing about. And we're moving forward with that with Justin. But my big takeaway from this is you've got a section of the public that they don't know us. They don't even know if they want to know us. But when they meet us, they're interested and they want to do things. But you almost have to teach them how to use our department and what we have to offer. Since that day, they're doing their own thing now. They're calling me going, hey, we've got this curriculum started. I'm very involved with them to this day. So is Justin. And it just took off. And it went from one R3 practitioner officer go in there and say, hey, my name's Bill Freeman, and I want to teach you hunter education. It's a business. You get out there and sell your department, and then things just start happening. I've got friends that I keep in touch with that have graduated. Some of them have went to work in these fields. Some of it, I take students every year to CFWA, to MNRIC, to the minorities in that natural resource conservation. Taking them for 5 years. They get to meet people. They get to network. They're coming into these fields, and they're hunting and they're fishing. They send me pictures of what they catch and what they eat when they're cooking it. So just excitement. But that's just one story of it starting, and now Alabama A&M. I've done work with Alabama State University. Had students from Troy. So it just took off. It's in demand, but they don't know how to ask us or what to ask for. So go tell them.
Oh, like mic drop. I feel like that's a really, that point right there, Bill, that you just made. Here's the thing that I feel like you're making my little R3 heart go pitter patter right now, because I feel like a lot of folks have grappled with in R3 how we do diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and sometimes lose sight of the fact that sometimes it's just as simple as making an introduction and being a good friend. And what you're showing is just showing up, right? And having an opportunity to share, hey, these are the resources I have. What are your barriers? What are your interests, and how can I help? It can be as simple as that. So thanks for sharing that story, and I'm excited for you. And I felt your excitement while you were talking. Now I'm gonna be following up with you in a couple of months, asking how it's going.
I get kind of emotional about it because I was that kid.
I think it says a lot. That ties in just the three conversations right there. Marianne talking about Facebook, social media, Brandon talking about communities, Bill talking about these college communities, just meeting people where they are. When from a program standpoint, I'm really proud of the outreach programs that we offer in our state, and we have an incredible array of attendees. And I think it's a testament to meeting people where they are, creating these opportunities in these communities for anybody that wants to be involved, and then having that customer service mindset first and foremost. And then, you know, when you build good things, good people will be involved and good things will happen. And that's really a testament to what they're all saying. So again, just hats off to them.
It's a great observation. And Bill, I can tell that hits close to home, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. And you're absolutely right. Relationship building and reaching out is huge. Brandon, you look like you got a smart aleck comment just waiting to come out of your face.
I don't. It's not smart aleck at all. It's just listening to all this, and the more we talk about it, obviously, the more things come to mind. One thing that me and you spoke about when we were in Oklahoma is he brought up sending him pictures, and me and Marianne and Justin and Bill, Billy Pope, actually, we sat down and we talked about this while we were at the symposium.
About like people hunting wildlife pictures for social media, that kind of thing.
Right. So the thing is Marianne, she offers that. She offers for people to post their pictures a lot, but sometimes the response is good and sometimes it's not as much as it should be, or in my eyes, or what I think. That's another barrier that we're trying to break there, because some people think that if they post their photos, then the game warden's going to come after them, which that's not what we're doing. That's not what we want to do. We want to welcome them into this world and let them understand that we want to see your trophies. We want to see the things that make you happy. You know, that's why Marianne is actually offering that up. It's not a bad thing. So reaching out into those communities and letting them know that it's okay for them to post their pictures and show the things that they've harvested over time, or not even necessarily just harvest. You know, send us pictures of what it looks like from your tree stand or your shooting house that morning with the sun coming up over your green field, stuff like that. We want people to do that, but there's a bad rap there, and it's not just in Alabama, but all across the board for the law enforcement and conservation. People think that, oh, well, if I post this picture, then maybe they can see my location and they'll come check me. That's not what we want to do. We want to break that wall down and show people that, hey, it's okay for you to post your photos and, you know, tell us about your experience. And that helps to, once it's on social media, that's out there for everybody to see. And some other people might see it and they're like, hey, you know, this guy's having fun. He's doing this. He's outdoors. So we want that. We want that build up.
I think what you're talking about, and one that hits close to home for me too, is just building trust again. We talked about what it's like to build relationships with folks and address boundaries and concerns directly and be responsive with those concerns. And I can tell that you're tuned into it in your community, and that's part of some of the communication I know you've already had with the community that you serve. So I think that's really meaningful work. Yeah, Bill.
I don't know how to do that other thing, but building trust within the community, like Brandon's talking about, is so important. But I tell you what I think is very important is that I trust every single one of these people on this panel. Mm-hmm. That if I can't do something, I know that they know how, and I know that they will help me. So it makes me better when I know that I can go, and if I get in trouble, I know Marianne's gonna help me. She's gonna steer me in the right direction, and Brandon and Justin. So trusting the people that you work for is the first thing you need to do before you can establish it other ways, because a big part of the past is you would go out and talk up an event or what you want to do with the public, and then you've got to follow through. You have got to follow through with what you say. Be where your feet are. And so that trust is established between us as a group. I can call Brandon, I can call Marianne, I can call Justin, and I know that I get good information And even if I mess something up, they're going to help. So very, very important.
Love that you
And
said
your
that.
director and your chief of law enforcement. They kind of send me and Brandon out and to work with people, and they don't question it because they trust us and they know that we're going to represent the department in the manner that they want it to be done. And when you've got that, you can do anything you want to do.
That's a huge plug for hiring the right people into the right positions. Absolutely true. And then being able to trust each other as you work as a part of a team. I think that's incredible, Bill. Thank you for sharing that. This all kind of around the outside of this keeps reminding me of our 3 minutes conversation that Justin had with us at the R3 symposium. And you all have spent time talking about how important education as part of law enforcement is and how important relationship building is. And so Justin, I was wondering if you could give us like just a quick rundown, though I've never heard you speak faster than you spoke during your 3 minutes presentation.
Neither have we.
Yeah, the first time I did that run through, it was like 3 minutes and 51 seconds. I was like, gosh, we got to trim this up and speed up our delivery. But the gist of it, and I spoke on a concept that's really on behalf of our law enforcement section and really a tribute to our law enforcement chief, Matt Weathers. And then a thanks to Swanee too for having the foresight to see the value in that and encouraging me to share that. But anyway, the gist of it is officer discretion and going in with a different mindset. So I talked about the difference in essentially writing a ticket or selling a license. And so again, every situation is different. You can't put one particular mode of operation to every single interaction with the general public. But overall, if you go in with the intent to educate and with that sort of customer service first mindset, you have the opportunity to create friends as opposed to enemies. And so that was the gist of the conversation. And it really, to see the impact in our communities and in our state has been really incredible. And then to talk to other practitioners in other states and to hear about the agency's relationships with their stakeholders. I'm really proud of what Alabama has done, and I'm just so proud to see the way our officers interact with the general public. Makes me proud to be a resident of this state and an employee of this agency.
That's awesome. I think not only does that resonate to me as the right thing to do, and certainly a good faith effort in building relationships with your community and showing up for your community. Like it feels that it is the right thing to do. But on top of that, Justin, you also shared the return on investment and value added component to that. Could you talk a little bit about that piece of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's one of the other shifts that we've made is thinking about, so obviously the mission of our agency is to protect our natural resources. But in order to do so, there's a funding model that involves hunting and fishing licenses. So we've sort of reframed it in this business mindset, which also involves marketing and it involves retaining customers. So when you think about it from that standpoint, if in lieu of writing 1,000 tickets, you make 1,000 friends, those are 1,000 new customers that when you add these new marketing efforts and this new customer service first mindset, you have the ability to retain a large number of those constituents in perpetuity. You obviously won't keep all 1,000 of them, but compared to maybe 10 or 15 years ago when we weren't hyper aware of this sort of customer service continuum and we weren't developing or implementing these marketing strategies, we probably would likely have lost a lot of those users. In this day and age, that's not the case. We can stay in touch with those folks. We can keep them involved. We can get them to one of these amazing outreach events that we've talked about, or we can keep them involved with our newsletters. Just so many avenues to retain those people in lieu of having a one-touch point where, you know, again, it's positive or negative and one and done. Now we can continue to have those positive touch points.
I think that's awesome. The shift in mentality, that philosophy shift within an organization, look at the impact you're going to have on thousands of people as a result of that. I mean, that's fantastic. You know, one thing that this team continues to tell me is like, Taniya, I don't know, we don't have it all figured out. But every time you keep talking to me, it's like solid goal. You know, a few years ago when I was a practitioner in South Dakota, And there's an incredible team there, and there's some really great work being done, but there's always room for progress. And I wish I'd had all of these ideas to pull from when I was working at that level. But I'm so glad here in this national platform that you all are willing to share these messages with the community at large, because there's so much solid gold to pull from this. So with that, we're going to wrap up here in the next few minutes, but I wanted to provide you all with an opportunity to share any parting thoughts about your role in this, and Marianne from a communication standpoint, Brandon and Bill from a law enforcement standpoint, Justin in your specific role. As you think about R3 and building your R3 team, what are just some general thoughts that you might have that we haven't had a chance to cover today?
I think obviously having your director's buy-in, your senior leadership buy-in is extremely important. And then having those open doors of communication are absolutely essential to creating these teams. And again, we have an informal team here, but we have an informal team thanks to those open doors. And so that communication and that support from your chain of leadership is absolutely essential to make any progress.
That is huge when you see the teams that have that unilateral support, just no question asked, top to bottom, bottom up, R3. It makes a lot of difference, doesn't it?
For sure.
What else?
I think that a big important role is communication. And it's not just communication between our team. It's getting that information to the frontline, boots on the ground workers, include them, let them know if anything other than do a R3 minutes like Justin did every couple of months. Let them know what's new. Let them know what's going on. Let them know how they're affecting what we do for a living and what we all love. Keep them in the loop. They don't necessarily need to get bogged down, but keep them in the loop, because those are the ones that are out there, the law enforcement, every county, every community within the state, and just keep them apprised and communicate with them what's going on and here's why, and provide training whenever you can. Just like conservation words matter. And you keep them learning, they stay hungry, and it just keeps working.
Not agree more. It can be so easy to let that very simple thing slip, right? To make assumptions about what people know, or and especially when you're higher up in an organization, just making sure that the pathway of communication is open. But you're absolutely right, Bill. That's huge. To making sure that you're all on the same page, moving in the same direction together, and have the same why. That's huge. Thank you for sharing that. What else?
Earlier I mentioned outreach events and gave some specific examples about, perhaps we might go to an event where we have thousands of people come and we're the front lines of interacting with the public, but staff, regardless of their position, needs to know that they speak to more people every other day of the year combined than they do at those outreach events. So staff members need to not save themselves. Don't save your best self for big events. It's R3 is an ongoing theme with all of your interactions with the public. And that comes with every phone call, that comes with every interaction. You may even have, off duty or at the gas station. I know we all get stopped at the gas station a lot with our trucks. So it's important to realize that you're not saving your best self and your best representation of the agency for some specific date, that you reach exponentially more people combined on all those other days where you're not actually doing an R3 event. Everything you're doing in those small, subtle situations is also R3.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, Marianne. I think you're absolutely right about that. And your initiatives for internal training around IMR3 really helps to enhance everybody's understanding of where they fit in that bigger picture. So thank you for sharing that. Looking at you, Brandon.
So
Take us home.
Everybody's always waiting on Brandon. I'm usually late too. I'm always the last one. So so I'm going to piggyback off of what they said, but I want to hit this point for the staff to understand that I know this is a job, but this is also a passion. And the better interaction that we have with the community and with our staff together as a team, not just the 4 or 5, 6 of us, but everybody across the board, then we build that passion for someone else. And the more that we build that relationship, then the better this is for all of us. This program can't grow if we can't build a relationship with the community and with ourselves. So understand that it is a job, but it's a passion that people are reaching for. They're asking us for knowledge. So we have to pass that on. I mean, it's community service from us.
And we're gonna have folks lining up for the next job interview in Alabama.
Oh.
Awesome. Lance, what did I forget in this call?
I don't think you missed anything. I'll just say, from somebody who spent a lot of years working for a state wildlife agency, I'm really impressed to hear you all talk about the relationship, the importance of community. And these are things that I think gaps that agencies are trying to bridge, greater, stronger community connection. And you all are doing it. And I think you should be quite proud of the work you're doing and the accomplishments that you're having with taking this path. So work well done.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I've got some major takeaways from this conversation about how important director buy-in is, about how important internal communication is, what it's like to have law enforcement as a public-facing face for our agency and working together collaboratively with that team of folks and making sure that they're at the table as planning efforts roll out. What it's like to build your internal R3 culture as part of your organization's concrete foundation, and how far you can go with that when it comes to building trust and relationships with your external public as well. How to work across silos. And I love that Bill said, be where your feet are. I feel like we could all practice that a little bit more. So with that, Alabama, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so proud to have you on this call, and I look forward to being able to connect with you more in the future. And I hope you all at home that are watching this consider reaching out to these folks as your examples and resources. So thank you all.